Okay, 16 days to SI, and we just saw the closed qualifiers for EU. So that's 2 qualifiers down. Technically, it should have been 3 already, but LATAM still hasn't had their qualifier. Still don't know what the deal with that is. We'll have to see. And then next weekend, we'll see the NA qualifier. And so let's talk about what happened in the EU closed qualifier. Okay, the 4 teams that we saw here were Vitality, Cavanaugh, Secret, and Eminem. And Eminem, if you're unaware, they have recently qualified for EUL 2022, and if you're curious about the name Eminem, it stands for Molotovs and Marshmallows. So just a little fun fact there. Okay, so the bracket, let's take a look at how things went down. You can see how it progressed, but let's just start at the beginning here. Vitality versus Secret, and Secret take it down 2-1. Close affair on Bank. They go to overtime, but Secret manages to take it. And then they go to Villa, and it looks like things might swing Vitality's way. They do, at least on Villa. Pretty decisive victory, 7-2. And then we go to max regulation on Cafe, but it is Secret that wins it. So sending Vitality right down to the loser's bracket, and Secret advances. I think a lot of people probably expected either Vitality or Cavanaugh to win the thing, given that they were the teams that most narrowly missed out on SI, and that Secret and Eminem had to play through the open qualifier to get here. And then also, Vitality and Cavanaugh were like mid-tier EUL teams, just a little bit below the top echelon, just missing out on some of the events, some of the majors, and then also, SI just off points. So the other upper bracket semifinal was between Cavanaugh and Eminem, and it was 2-0 in favor of Cavanaugh. Very close affair, max overtime on Oregon, as things tend to go on Oregon sometimes. Both team got a 4-2 on defense, but finally, in overtime, you could see Cavanaugh broke the trend a little bit, and they got an attack and a defense, managing to win the thing. And then Coastline, 7-5, max regulation, but still went to Cavanaugh. So Cavanaugh looking pretty good, taking it over Eminem, close games, but still a 2-0. All right, lower bracket semifinal. We'll take a look at this next. And it was on Saturday and Sunday, the event. These 3 games, the upper bracket semifinals, both of them, and the upper bracket final took place on the first day, as well as the lower bracket semifinals. And then the lower bracket final and the grand final were both on Sunday. So do keep that in mind. Right, Vitality versus Eminem, 2-0 in favor of Eminem. So Vitality getting knocked out of the tournament first was a little bit of a surprise, and Eminem, taking them down in fairly decisive fashion. A 7-2. It doesn't get much more decisive than that, and then a 7-5, fairly close, but still a 2-0 for Eminem, where it didn't really look like they were ever so much on the ropes. Didn't even need to see Villa. And all right, Vitality out. Upper bracket final between the 2 eyeball teams, Secret and Cavanaugh. Another 2-0 for Cavanaugh, so it looked like they might have just swept through the thing. As you can see, not the case once they got to the grand final, but before that, they were looking quite good. Another 7-2 and 7-5, so identical result to the lower bracket semifinal. A Bank and a Chalet here, both going to Cavanaugh, and these are both different style maps than the other ones, like Villa, Cafe, Clubhouse, Oregon. They're sort of more structured maps, whereas Bank and Chalet are a little bit looser, and so is Coastline, I suppose, is maybe the way you would categorize it. And so we see Cavanaugh win these 2 here, but what maps did they actually play against Eminem? It was an Oregon and a Coastline, so, it was very close on the really structured map, but on, the other, we'll say loose map, it was another Cavanaugh victory, more decisive than the other. Okay, so we'll keep this in mind a little bit going into the future. And then, right, so lower bracket final, Team Secret versus Eminem. The loser of this will be out, and the winner will go to the grand final. So it's Eminem Gaming taking Secret down 2-1. So Secret didn't look terrible in this event. Of course, they lost to Cavanaugh 2-0, but they took down Vitality, and they took 1 map off of Eminem, and a 7-5, 7-5, and a 7-2. So we see a lot of 7-5s and a lot of 7-2s in this event, and not a lot of overtime. We only end up seeing like 2 maps or 3 maps or something go to overtime, but a lot of these 7-5, so a lot of max regulations. A Cafe, a Villa, and an Oregon, so 3 of the more structured maps once again here. And Eminem ends up taking the series. The 2 teams look pretty evenly matched after the first 2 maps, a 7-5 and a 5-7 for Eminem, and then Oregon 7-2. So maybe they're just really good on Oregon, maybe they're just not as good on Villa, maybe they just had more stamina and longevity than Secret. Whatever it was, they take it down. And of course, this was the first match of the second day, so Eminem now has to go into the grand final, just having played a best of 3 that went to all 3 maps. And I believe the break between the 2 was only like 20 minutes. And well, I know almost for a fact because they really hammered that point home on the broadcast. Okay, so Cavanaugh versus Eminem. This is a rematch from the upper bracket semifinal here, where Cavanaugh took it in a 2-0, a close 2-0. But it's also a rematch from last year relegation match that between the two. Cavanaugh versus Eminem. The winner went to EUL, and the winner, of course, was Cavanaugh. So Eminem really looking for some revenge here. Eminem now being an EUL team, so this rivalry will continue into the future. Maybe, or well, no, not at SI. We'll get to see Eminem maybe versus some of the other EUL teams at SI, but going into EUL 2022, Cavanaugh versus Eminem, that'll be a hot little number to keep your eye out for. Okay, so right, a 3-2, pretty close, but it was almost not so close. Eminem actually takes the first two maps, and before I talk about this too much, let's look at the map veto. So grand finals is the winner of the upper bracket final and the winner of the lower bracket final. So one team, Eminem, has already lost a match in this event. So what compensation does Cavanaugh get? It's not a whole lot, really. So in other games, usually when there's a grand final and a loser bracket, the losing team has to win 2 matches. So they have to effectively knock the winner side team into the loser bracket and then beat them to take it over them. Whereas the winner side team just has to win one of the 2. So they can win the first one, or they can lose the first one and then win the second one. Either way, they'll win. But this is never the case in Siege. They would just be way too lengthy of an affair, and so they never do it. What they usually do going into the grand final with a loser bracket is having a 1 map advantage. So Cavanaugh would automatically have 1 point, and they would just need to get 2, whereas Eminem needs to get 3 to win the thing. But recently in the close quals, they have been just giving a map pick advantage. So Cavanaugh gets to pick a map before either team bans. So it's a Cavanaugh pick, and then they both ban, and then that's 3 maps. So the other 4 maps will be played. Just the order is then determined. So Eminem had banned Bank every match that they played. So either they were trying to hide it for this grand final or for SI, or they're just bad at it. But clearly they're not that bad at it because they end up winning it. So that probably shook Cavanaugh a little bit. They probably thought that they were going to come in hot on Bank, take Eminem down, because Eminem are just they just never play it. They always hide it, or at least they have in this event. But so that was a little bit interesting to note. And we did see all these maps. We got to see all 5, and they were all 7-5s except for this cafe here. So 4 max regulations and 1 7-3. So fairly close, but again, no overtime. So could have been closer, could have been a little bit more suspenseful, but it was a good match to watch. A lot of action, a lot of really big plays, and well, it looked like it was going to be an Eminem sweep, but we got the potential for a Cavanaugh comeback. So a 7-5, they're clawing their way back, another 7-5, but then in the end, Eminem shuts it down. They don't choke it. And one thing you got to keep in mind here a little bit that maybe I didn't mention, I alluded to a little bit, the longevity of the thing. So at the end of the day, Eminem had played 8 maps, so 3 against Secret and 5 against Cavanaugh over the course of however many hours, but with very minimal break. There were a few tech pauses and whatnot. They had a short break between the 2 maps, but they were playing back-to-back tier 1 Siege for a very long time against 2 solid teams. So, and then Cavanaugh, having played them before, you'd think Eminem has a little bit of an advantage, ignoring the map pick stuff, but usually the team that loses before has a little bit of an advantage. Cavanaugh, in a sense, showed their hand a little bit more. Eminem now knows how to better deal with what Cavanaugh does, and Eminem has the opportunity to change things up, whereas Cavanaugh doesn't really so much want to change things up because they had a winning formula. They won 2-0. So I think that pretty much covers it for the bracket, but I do want to look at the stats for this grand final here because there was something quite interesting that went down, a little bit of a record being broke. So let's take a look at it. Okay, here we go. CGG put this up, and here are the stats for the grand final. You'll notice Tyrant has 65 kills. This is the most kills anyone's ever gotten in a best of 5. So Citizen broke that record a little bit ago. I had that video about it, and before that, we saw Cyber set the record for the most kills, and Cyber had 57 kills in the grand final of the Sweden Major, so over the course of 5 maps. I don't recall what his KPR was. I think it might have even been like below 1.0, or it was around 1.0 anyways, whatever it was. Right, this is the new record, 65 kills in a competitive match and in a best of 5, and it's very, very unlikely that one of those records will be broken without the other being broke. That is, nobody's going to get 65 kills in a best of 3. Probably not. It's possible, but it's pretty unlikely. So we'll have to see in the future best of 5s if the record can be broken again, as it was just done by Tyrant. So just looking at the stats here, nothing too crazy other than that. The stats are pretty tightly packed. You like to see it. Nobody too low, a 0.83 and a 0.85, and then besides Tyrant, nobody's like off the charts high. Sloth and Usus did pretty well as well, so pretty evenly spread out. And then looking at the rest of Tyrant stats, of course, the KD is insane. Entry, nothing crazy. +4 is good. He was obviously involved in quite a few, 16. And so the KPR, 1.12, that's also not earth-shattering. It's very impressive, but, you can't discriminate against the fact that it is a 1.12 KPR over the course of, I think this is 58 rounds. So 1.12, very good. But to keep it up for that long, to keep those numbers up. So, he was, you got to say Tyrant was a big reason that Eminem is going to SI. So, right, survival rate, cost, not even, so best survival rate on the team, sure. Cost, second best on the team, but good numbers. Right, just impressive performance by Tyrant and by Eminem, and even by Cavanaugh. Again, you like to see the tightly packed stats. I should mention, because I mentioned it a little while ago, I think I heard that Cavanaugh wasn't practicing scrimming, or maybe they're doing some scrimming. Some amount of their scrims didn't involve an arc kick, and this could be hearsay. I thought I heard their coach talking about this because they were planning to replace a player, which before I didn't know, but now I'm assuming is an arc kick. So that could have impeded their performance over the weekend, but up until this grand final, you wouldn't know it because they double 2-0'd, and then they almost even made the reverse sweep here. But so a little bit of a grain of salt here. Take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. And right, I hope the only other thing I wanted to mention was the operators over here. So we're in a fairly diverse meta in terms, you can pick a fairly diverse array of operators, maybe attackers a little bit less than defenders, but you can play a bunch of different attackers depending on the sites and maps and whatnot. And then defenders, you can do different strategies, pick different defenders, attack differently, defend differently, all this stuff. And most of the maps are getting pretty close to even. Attackers and defenders win a similar amount of the time. I think maybe like Cafe is still a bit defender-sided. Like Chalet or Bank or something might be attacker-sided a decent bit, but they're all pretty close to 50-50. And I did just want to point out, though, that the operator picks for both teams were fairly similar. So on attack, we see a Yana, a Sledge, a Finka, and a Habana on both teams. And then we see an IQ and a Maverick for Eminem and Cavanaugh, respectively. And then on defense, we see a Jaeger, a Malusi, and a Smoke on both teams. And then Eminem has an extra Jaeger, Cavanaugh has an extra Malusi, and then Eminem has a Mute, and Cavanaugh has an Aruni. So just all really good operators, and it makes sense that they were picked a lot, and it doesn't really tell the whole story or anything. There could be several attackers and defenders that were picked quite a lot, but that just weren't the most picked operator, of course, by any given player. But just a little thing I wanted to point out there. So I hope that covers it all. I don't think there's anything too much else to talk about. We have the NA close qualifier coming up this weekend, and again, the LATAM qualifier, I guess, at some point. But right, looking forward to Saturday and Sunday. We'll see TSM, Mirage, Parabellum, and One Shot go head-to-head in some fashion, and the winner of it will be going to SI. And then not too long after that, of course, 16 days from today, we will see SI commence. So, okay, right, with all of that being said, catch you in the next video.